Hey, what's going on, everybody? Samuel Kim here, and I'm back with another one. Thank you guys for continuing to tap in. I appreciate you guys. One thing I want to address right now, there's about 60% of you guys who are watching my videos who are not subscribed. So if that is one of you right now, if that subscribe button is not pressed, if that bell is not pressed, that notification bell is not pressed, I need you guys to do both of those right now. So just subscribe for me right now. We'll wait a couple seconds. Just subscribe. All right, are we good? Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you guys for tapping in today. I got a great video for you guys today. We're going to be talking about some really good topics. We are going to get straight into the topics. First thing I wanted to talk about was the college football playoff expanded bracket. They're expanding the bracket to 12 teams, which I know everybody has been waiting on. I got a little information on the bracket and how it's going to work. So On3 has reported that the new college football playoff will put the 4 highest ranked conference champions as seeds 1 through 4. That means that even if Notre Dame is the number 1 ranked team in the country, they would get the number 5 seed, requiring them to win 5 straight games to win a title. Well, we're not going to get into that right now. I got a couple more quotes for you guys about how the bracket is going to work out and everything. But I just think it's amazing that it's expanded to 12 teams. I think it's been needed for a long time. I think this year, I mean, there's been a lot of years. Every year we could say, oh, if we had 12, this team would have got an opportunity. Oh, if we had 12, this team would have an opportunity. But I think this year was one of the more drastic years that we saw in the college football playoff era, just because we saw a 13-0 team win their conference, win all the games in front of them, do everything right. The only thing they did wrong was it's not even something that they did wrong. Their quarterback unfortunately got hurt, and that is why the committee said they left him out of the playoffs, which I kind of understand, because then you see them play Georgia, and granted, all of their transfers and everybody that they had really brought in didn't participate in that game. So we could have expected a blowout like we saw, because all the players that helped them get that 13-0 record weren't there. But we did see them get beat down by Georgia, who was lauded as maybe the best team in the country all year until maybe late in the season. And still might have been the best team in the country. They just didn't get an opportunity because they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship. So that's pretty tough for Florida State. And I know Florida State probably wishes that this was in effect last year, but now that it's going in this year, I'm very excited. You know, I'm an FCS guy, so 24-team playoff, 8 seeded teams. I believe there's going to be 4 seeded teams in the 12-team playoff. That's going to be awesome. Get some home dates, I believe, for the playoff. Get some home games, 4 playoff games, so that the home environment, the home fans get to see their teams play again. The home fans get to experience a playoff environment. I mean, I think it's really good for college football. It's going to be amazing. A lot of people don't tap into the FCS playoffs, but that, I feel like, is a great example of why 12-team playoff is needed, because if you watch the FCS playoffs, they're so exciting. There's so many things going on. So many games to watch, so many really good games that take place. I mean, this year's playoff was amazing. A bunch of overtime games, a bunch of games that went down to the wire. Hopefully, we're able to see that in the college football playoff. And also, hopefully, one thing I think a lot of people like myself who think about a more expanded playoff bracket, they think about the little guy, the guy who's been good all year, the guy who may not necessarily play against the best competition, but the guy who rightfully deserves an opportunity. For instance, I think of James Madison. James Madison last year, I think 11-1, went 11-1 in the regular season. They may have lost the Sun Belt, or no, they didn't even get to play in the Sun Belt championship. But James Madison is a team who I think it has really good records year in and year out and deserves an opportunity. Or let's take 2016, I think the year was, or 2017, UCF. Since James Madison, I'm not going to do James Madison since they had the infractions and, all those things. Not the infractions, but they're moving up, so they're not allowed to play in postseason play, which I think is a dumb rule, but we don't have to get into that right now. UCF in 2017, 2016, whenever they had that really good team, they went 13-0, 14-0, whatever it was. I think it was 13-0. They beat Auburn in the bowl game, and then they called themselves the national champions. Well, I think now that we have the 12-team playoff bracket, that takes that out of it. You don't have to call yourself the national champion. You are going to get to prove who the national champion is, and you're going to get an opportunity to work your way through the bracket, hopefully make it to the national championship and mix things up. I think it makes it very similar to basketball when you got those Cinderella stories, some of the, the St. Petersburgs, Oral Roberts, you got all these schools, these smaller schools, Furman, what is this? Not Sam Houston, but the school in Texas. Teams like that in the NCAA bracket in basketball. they get an opportunity to get in the tournament, then you don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, the first game, you're always going to play a 1, 2, 3 seed, one of those higher seeded teams, but you win that, and then it's, it's whoever wins. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody just wants an opportunity, and this is going to give more teams an opportunity. Now, in the future, I'm sure there'll be people who say, oh, we need a 16-team bracket because there's going to be that one team at 13 or 14 on the bubble that gets left out, and people are going to want more. I think we see it happen in the FCS as well. People always think people got snubbed, but with a 12-team bracket, that's going to get more teams in, and that's going to truly show who the best team in the country is, who came out on top at the end of all this. They had to play the best teams in the country. Everybody's not going to see everybody, but I think it gives more parity for college football, and it just is more exciting for the fans. Obviously, they're going to be able to sell these games more, so more advertising dollars for the NCAA, more advertising dollars for ESPN, Fox, all these networks. Everybody's going to profit from this. Everybody's going to benefit from this. So it's good for college football, and it's good to keep, to allow more teams to have an opportunity to win the national championship instead of it just being the SEC Invitational, because that's at this point what a lot of people think it is. That's what a lot of people call it, the SEC Invitational. And let's try to get out of that, So here's some logistics about the 12-team playoff. The 5 highest ranked conference champions plus the next 7 highest ranked teams. So say the 5 highest ranked conference champions. So it's probably going to be an SEC team, probably a Big 12 team, probably an ACC team, probably a Big 10 team, probably multiple in that range. And then the next 7 highest seeded is highest ranked teams. So my thing is, are they... Well, yes, they're still going to go off the college football playoff ranking, so that's what's going to judge it all. And prior to that, it's probably going to be the AP and the media poll that's going to run the rankings and everything up until the college football playoff takes over. But that could be very interesting because the next highest 7 ranked teams, that could be anybody, I think some of those Sun Belt teams sometimes sneak in when they go undefeated. Some of those American Conference teams can sneak in when they go undefeated. That's where those teams in the Sun Belt Conference USA, like what's the team from last year? UTSA, or might have been 2 years ago, UTSA or UTEP, one of those teams in Texas, went undefeated, and they're playing the Conference USA, so nobody, I think, even looked at them to possibly make the playoff. But then you got the Coastal Carolinas from a couple years ago. Just there's so many teams that play good, and now this is going to give them opportunity. Under the 12-team playoff format that begins this fall, the 4 highest ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4, and each will receive a first-round bye, which I think is awesome. That is an incentive for teams to play hard all throughout the season. That's an incentive for you to win all your games, because that's a big thing in the FCS, getting those seeded games, getting that bye week, being able to see who you're going to play, being able to scout them a little more, rest your players, get guys healthy. That's a benefit to being able to make the playoff and be one of those higher seeded teams. Will receive a first round bye, while teams seeded 5 through 12 will play each other in first round on the home field of the higher ranked team, which is awesome. The quarterfinals and semifinals will be played in the New Year's 6 bowl games. The national championship game will continue to be at a neutral site. First round, you have 4 games because there's 8 teams. So that's 4 games. Next round, you're going to have 4 games as well. That would be the quarterfinals. Those 4 teams playing those 4 teams that made it to the first round, that's going to be the quarterfinals. That's going to be a New Year's 6 bowl. Next round, you got the semifinals. There's 2 games, 4 teams left. That's going to be, both of those will be New Year's 6 bowls. So I guess that counts as 6 games. So dang, this is interesting. So then that means 2 teams get to play in New Year's 6 bowls. So since the quarterfinals and the semifinals will be New Year's 6 bowls, that technically means a team will get to play in 2 New Year's 6 bowls. So my next question would be, and this is the first thing that popped into my mind, with like the bowl gifts and, the bowl environment, how does that change that? And then like also some of these teams, I mean, I guess these are the best teams, so these are some of the teams that will be playing in these New Year's 6 bowls anyway, but how does that affect bowl season? How does that affect, I don't know. I just think it's weird that these guys are going to be playing in 2 New Year's 6 bowls, and I think the bowls, the meaning of the bowls is meant for them to be a celebration, for the players and for the great season that they had. But if 2 teams are getting to have 2 New Year's 6 bowls, what does that mean for what the meaning of these bowls is? What does that mean for the future of the New Year's 6 setup? I don't know. That leaves me with some questions for sure, but that's exciting and cool that, they're going to get to continue to play in a bowl. So they're trying to maintain the bowl format while still trying to give people what they want in terms of a playoff bracket, in terms of more teams making the playoff. I think there's a lot that the college football playoff has to juggle here. So commend them for being able to do that. No conference will qualify automatically, and there will be no limit on the number of participants from a conference. I understand why they put that in there, because a lot of people are going to be seeing, like, say, for instance, this year, I think LSU finished 9-3. I think Georgia finished the regular season 11-1, and Alabama finished the regular season 11-1. In this playoff format, I think 3 SEC teams get in. I think they put LSU in, or it might not have been LSU. It might be Ole Miss. I think they put Ole Miss in. LSU was 9-3. I think Ole Miss was 10-2. I think they put Ole Miss in at 10-2 because I think they were like 11 or 12, maybe 10. I think they might have been 10. They put Alabama in for sure, and they put Georgia in for sure. That's why they put that stipulation in there, just letting people know there's no limit. So they could essentially have like a 12-team SEC playoff if they wanted, if the SEC was that good. Or they could have like a 12-team SEC Big Ten playoff, or 12, like they're putting that in there because they're letting the fans know it's not always going to be just like everybody gets just because you won your conference doesn't mean you're going to get in. Like if you win your conference and you're 8-4 or maybe 9-4 since you won the conference championship, if you win your conference and you're 9-4, that doesn't guarantee you a spot in. You have to be one of the top 12 teams in the country to get into the college football playoff, which you got to respect. But we also do know how biased some of the people who vote on rankings and vote on these things are biased towards the SEC, which is the best conference in football. So I think there should be a healthy level of a little bias there, because they have shown year in and year out that they're the best conference, them in the Big Ten. So they're just setting the stage right now, just letting you guys know that, hey, there's no guarantee that if you win your conference you're going to be in. There's no limit to how many teams in each conference can be in. We're just letting you guys know. And I just already read the thing about the I'm gonna read this again because I think I read it too early. The new college football playoff will put the 4 highest ranked conference champions as seeds 1-4. That means that even if Notre Dame is the number 1 ranked team in the country, they would get the number 5 seed, requiring them to win 4 straight games to win a title. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Just because, they don't get to play a conference championship game, so they don't even qualify for a 1-4 seed. That's tough. But also, on college football standpoint, I know Notre Dame has been independent for a long time, except for COVID when they played with the ACC. I think this incentivizes Notre Dame to find a conference, most likely the ACC or the Big Ten, one of those two. But I think this incentivizes them to join a conference so that they can qualify to be in the college football playoff at a higher seed, That'll give them a bye because only the top 4 seeds get a bye. And, this is interesting too because the new college football playoff will put the 4 highest ranked conference champions as seeds 1-4. So say the Big 12 or ACC has a really down year and you got the Big 10 champion in there, the SEC champion in there. You put the 4 next highest ranked champions. So what if the American Conference and Sun Belt champions are at 10-11? They're going to get a seed because they're the highest ranked champions. Say they're both undefeated. The American Conference champion goes undefeated and the Sun Belt champion goes undefeated. That means they're going to get in over the Big 12 champion or no, because it just depends on where they're ranked. So the people doing these rankings, say you have a 9-4 Big 12 champion or ACC champion, but you have that I can just see it right now. This is now going to create some discourse with how they're ranking teams, because if you have a really low ranked SEC or ACC or Big 12 champion, whatever Power 4 conference it is, if you have a really low ranked one of those teams in those conferences, people are now going to say, oh, they're just ranking them there so that they can get a seed so that you don't have a Sun Belt seed. Or, this is going to be very interesting. I'm very interested to see how this plays out. I know I'm hella excited for it. I've been waiting for a 12-team playoff. My thing, and I ask my friends this all the time, is who thought a 14 playoff from the jump was going to be a good thing? And I know this is something that they had talked about for a long time. A lot of fans have been wanting a playoff. The BCS, the computers, they're not very good. We'd rather a human be picking this. I understand all the argument and all the discourse. But now, I just want to know, when they started the 14 playoff, who thought 4 was going to be good? You look at all these playoff formats. D3 football, I think they have like 32 teams. D2 football, they got a big playoff bracket. FCS football, big playoff bracket. NCAA basketball, big playoff bracket. But then college football, it's like, we're going to put the best 4 in. I mean, it never works like that because so many things can happen in football. It's not that you want to give them time to mess up, but it's like you want to give more people an opportunity to be able to prove themselves, which I think they deserve. I mean, the FCS this year, it worked out that the 1 and 2 seed played in the national championship, but I think that was the first time it worked out like that in some years. It's been a long time. Like, teams need an opportunity to prove themselves. That's why we play football. We play football to be able to prove ourselves on the biggest stage in front of the best competition. And I think that's what the 12-team playoff is going to do. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys think about the 12-team playoff. I know I've been talking about this for a minute, but I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to create a lot of excitement coming into the season and leading up to, through, and toward the end of the season. I think it's going to be so exciting, and I'm excited to see how it plays out. So glad that got approved. Glad it's going through. Glad we're going to get to see what it looks like. You guys let me know in the comments what you think about it. I saw this earlier last week, and it really intrigued me because I think it's something that I think could help FCS football a lot. But the Big 12 is not doing a pro day. They're not doing individual pro days. So let me read this to you. No pro days in the Big 12 this year. Rather, the conference will have its own mini combine. That's by Tony Pauling on X. My first question that came to my mind was, do Texas and Oklahoma, are they going to compete in this pro day? Because they're technically moving over to the SEC, but I think that doesn't go in effect till June or July. So do they compete in the Big 12 joint pro day, or how does that work? But my overall thoughts about this is I think this is really good. I think this is really awesome. And I saw, conflicting things on the internet about, some people think it's going to be a good thing. Some people don't think it's going to be a good thing. The reason I think it's a good thing is because, say, for example, my pro day in 2021, Troy Anderson was my class. He went to Montana State. They had a lot of good players. I think they had a few more players that were higher rated by scouts than us. So they had more scouts at their pro day. Their pro day was on a Tuesday. Our pro day was on a Wednesday. I think they had maybe 10 or 12 scouts at their pro day. I think we had maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 at our pro day. Imagine if we had that pro day jointly. As an FCS player, thinking about this as an FCS, imagine if they had that pro day jointly, what that would do in terms of getting guys more exposure. You have Troy Anderson, the guy who everybody wants to see. If we do that pro day jointly as a big guys conference, that's going to have this. The scouts are going to come to see Troy, so they're going to come to see everybody. That gives everybody more exposure, but also it makes for less travel for scouts and the personnel wanting to come observe these players. It makes less travel. It brings it all to one joint venture, one joint spot that you can see all the players that you want to see, get all your evaluations out, and move on with your day. But I think one problem that a lot of people, the one thing that I saw on the internet was people don't like, they said scouts don't like that because scouts like the more individual approach. They like going to campus. They like talking to strength coaches. They like talking to all the personnel that they're going to need to talk to in order to conduct these pro days and evaluate these players. So I think that kind of takes some of it out of it, some of the evaluation. It maybe might change some of the evaluation process, but I think in terms of FCS players who don't always get that exposure and aren't always getting, all those people, all the scouts possible at their pro days, that'll bring a bunch of scouts to one joint location and you can observe all the FCS players. Somebody might pop that you didn't even know about, and there they go. They're getting into a training camp and they have an opportunity to make an NFL roster. I think it's amazing thinking about it from an FCS standpoint, but thinking about it I think it's amazing from thinking about it from a college football standpoint. You bring all these scouts to one spot, observe all these players. It gives everybody an opportunity to eat. The guys who are supposed to do well are going to do well anyway, and then somebody who you might not have known about might pop for you. I think it's really awesome. And you got to think about all the people who don't get an opportunity to go to the combine, don't get an opportunity to do a proper pro day, like some of these D2 guys, some of these lower tier FCS guys who might not even get a pro day or might not even get a combine invite, not by getting an all-star game invite, might not get any of that. When you do all this at one joint location, I think it's just better for everybody involved. I had some questions I wanted to pose about this that were, kind of on my mind. And one of my questions that I had involving this is, one, is this the future of pro days? I think this is going to be the future of pro days. I think this is kind of where, once again, I just ate breakfast, so hang in there with me. But I think this is where the conferences are going to lean towards, because I think it saves money. I think it pools resources together, and also it makes it easier on the scouts. In my opinion, the scouts can have their own opinion about that. It might not make it easier for them. We may never know. I already asked the question about, can this happen in the FCS? I would love to see it happen in the FCS. My question would be, what are the financial burdens of the conference and of each individual school in order to pull this off? Like, do you bus players there? Do you transport players to the pro day, or do you leave it up to the players to get themselves there? What does that look like? What is it going to take in terms of personnel from each school, personnel from each conference? Like, what is that going to look like for, each school? Do you need to, each school need to allot their strength coach to be able to be there, be on site? And I'm sure a lot of strength coaches will want to be there for that, but it's like, how does that work out? So I know there's a lot of logistics. Obviously, people are going to want to see how it turns out for the Big 12 this year to give further thoughts, but hopefully the Big 12 knocks it out the park, and this can be a mainstay going forward for a bunch of conferences. I would love to see that. Is it invite? Oh yeah, this is my biggest question about this. Is it invite only, or are all draft eligible players able to attend? So in the Big 12's instance, like, do they only? I mean, because let's be real. There's not everybody is draft eligible. Not everybody is a. Well, everybody, if you're above 3 years out of high school, you're draft eligible. But not everybody is like. Not everybody has an opportunity or has a shot to make it. Some guys are just going to put out a workout. Some guys are just going to do a workout just because, that's the next steps and that's what's in front of you. But not everybody. So my question is it invite only, or are all players able to attend? Because I think that could create some discourse and could create some discussion within this joint Pro Bowl setup. So I would like to know, is everybody invited, or is it just all draft? Is it invite only? Is it invite only, or all draft eligible players able to attend this? That would be my main question. And if you guys have any answers on that, let me know in the comments. We are going to move on to the next. Or one more question for you guys. Is this a good change or a bad change? In you guys' opinion, I think it's a really good change, and I think it can mean great things for lower tier schools, the lower levels of football, D3, D2, FCS. I think it could do really good things. I think it might be a little more difficult at the D2, D3, NAIA level because they're already, stressed with funds. They don't have a lot of funds to go around. So, trying to put something like this together, one, it would benefit the players, but is it financially feasible for these divisions to do it? I think at the FCS level they can swing it, but I don't know. I don't know if every conference can do it. I don't know. I'd love to see it go on. And then one more question that just came to my mind. Why isn't there an FCS combine? I know we have the NFL draft combine. You have an HBCU combine. There's no FCS combine. And I know it's going to just water it down more now because, you got the HBCU combine, you got the NFL combine. It seems like everybody's trying to do a little combine, but it's like giving these guys an opportunity to get in front of more scouts from an FCS standpoint. I know it's like if they were good enough, they would make the NFL draft combine, which is fair. But I don't know. I just think it's interesting that there's an HBCU combine, which was needed. I love that. But there's no FCS combine, and the only way for guys from the FCS to make it to a combine is either, not either. It's only the NFL draft combine, or that's it, I would love to know the answer for that. I don't know if you guys saw this last week, but Johnny Manziel was on Club Shay Shay, and they mentioned how Johnny Manziel's father asked Texas A&M for $3 million for his son to return to A&M in 2014 for the next 2 years, which, he also said in the interview, I don't know if you guys have seen the interview. I watched a good bit of the interview, and he said this is how things were done at that time. There was a bag man. This is his words. He said there was a bag man, and when you wanted somebody to attend your school, or you guys were accosting somebody to come to your school, the bag man went and saw him. So Johnny Manziel at that time was a Heisman winner. He had if he comes back to play again, he could potentially get hurt. He could potentially lose a lot of money not going to the NFL, like getting hurt and not having the best opportunity to shine in the NFL. There's a lot of things that could have happened when he was in that position. But, for his dad to go and Johnny said he wasn't even privy to this. He said he wasn't mad about it, but he said he wasn't privy to it before his dad did it. His dad just did it and then let him know after the fact. Man, I think it's interesting. I think, and it's also, it's Texas A&M. They got a ton of money. I think it's interesting that they weren't willing to pay that. Just seeing how good they were at that time. And, Texas A&M is always trying to do whatever they can to be able to win. The fact that this is back in 2014. So 10 years, almost 10 years before NIL was even a thing, but everybody knows these things were going on back then. I've never seen any proof that these things went on, and I'm kind of surprised that no actual concrete facts about backdoor deals in the SEC or in some of these Big 12 and the ACC, Big 10. I'm surprised none of these has gone public and nobody has outed anybody. I think it's probably because if one person gets outed, a whole bunch of people are going to go down. So everybody is better off if just everybody keeps their mouth shut. But everybody knew things like this have gone on in the past. So to hear Johnny Manziel say that, I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that they weren't willing to pay it. It would have been interesting to see what his career turned out to be if he would have got that, I'm not sure he would have been able to hide it. If you get $3 million as a 20-year-old kid, it's going to be hard to hide that. You're going to want to, buy nice clothes, buy nice shoes, take your friends out, take your girl out. You're going to want to go on trips. You're going to want to do all the nice things. So, for them not to do it, I think, good on them. I guess, now that we're now where we are now, that would have been commonplace, and Johnny Manziel probably would have stayed in college for 4 or 5 years if that was the thing back then, but it wasn't. And I just thought that was something interesting. So I wanted to see how you guys thought about that. EA Sports College Football is launching its NIL opt-in program for college football players through One Team Partners partnership with CLC. Athletes will register through CLC's Compass NIL app. It's a historic moment. This is a historic moment. Each player is going to get $600 and a copy of the game. Now, me and my fiance were talking about this, and it gets interesting because when you do the math on the $600 per player, that's the 134 FBS teams. I think we all have confirmation now that FCS teams are not on the game. It's only going to be FBS teams for now. I think they plan or might plan on adding the FCS teams or some of the other divisions of football later on. But I'm just happy to have the game back. I said this last week and I'll say it again. I'm just happy to have the game back. Now with that, I thought I was about to sneeze. Anyway, now with the game coming back, paying these players $600, it might seem kind of low, but when you put into account there's 134 teams, it was a good chunk of money to pay these players just for and you got to think they're giving the game away for free too, so that's overhead as well, along with the $600. A lot of people are saying that the players shouldn't opt in because it's only $600 and it is what it is, but part of me feels like, man, these guys are getting paid to be on a video game in college. And some of you guys, let's be real, some of you guys haven't done anything. And you're going to get $600 for doing nothing, just being on the game. Now, some of these guys who aren't going to be chosen to be ambassadors, but also still have really big names in college football, that's where it's going to get interesting. Because I know I'm sure they're probably choosing like 10 to 15 players, maybe less, probably less, to be straight up ambassadors of the game. So they're going to get paid a little more, also get a copy of the game, but they're going to get paid a little more. So who could I think of right now in college football? Jalen Milroe. I could see Jalen Milroe being chosen as an ambassador of the game. He's going to speak highly of the game, speak highly of EA Sports. He's going to parade the game all around and try to get them more viewership, more users, all that stuff. But outside of that, say there's a player who had a really good year last year. I can think of, he's not a really big name, but he had a really good year. Arizona's receiver who's staying at Arizona. I can't remember his name. He's a Pacific Islander. I can't exactly remember his name, but really good receiver. He's really tall, really skinny, had 1,300, 1,400 receiving yards last year, ridiculous amount of touchdowns, really good season. He's a really good player. But from his standpoint, I would say, I don't think $600 is commensurate of what you should be making on this game. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair compensation for who you are as a player, your name, image, and likeness. I don't think that's fair compensation. I feel like a lot of players might feel that way. And I think that's where it's going to get kind of gray. And obviously on EA Sports standpoint of things, they don't care. You don't want to opt in, we'll give you a generic player, they'll have your number, that'll be it. And maybe they won't even have your number. Maybe they'll just be a generic player and you won't be in the game. That's fine. But I know there's I think it's the NCAA Players Association or some organization who's arguing for the players and on the players' behalf is saying none of the players should opt in. Everybody should turn down the $600. Everybody should stay away from the game, I partly agree with that because $600 seems kind of low, especially considering the game's been gone for 10 years and this is the reason that the game was gone. I commend them for making the right strides. It's crazy that it took 10 years, but making the right strides and trying to compensate players for putting their name, image, and likeness on the game. I respect that, and I think that's great. And I think a lot of players should just opt in. Don't say anything. Just opt in. Be grateful. Be thankful that you're on the game. Be thankful that you're getting paid not fairly. Some of you guys are getting paid fairly, unfairly, even maybe. But be happy that you're getting on the game and you have an opportunity to play with yourself. Pause on the game and just live out that dream. And so many people would want to be on a video game. I would love to be on a video game, and I've never gotten the opportunity. So I think that's something that should be celebrated, and a lot of players should just, sign it straight up, opt in. But then there's a lot of players who, are going to be on the other side of that and fairly think that they deserve more compensation. And I think that's going to create some discussion. So that's going to be interesting. Players will get $600 a copy. Opt in via the Compass NIL app. More than 11,000 players expected in the game. All of that was from Chris Vanini, and a lot of the first quote I read off was from On3 Sports. Okay, we're gonna get off EA Sports, college football. That's great. I'm excited it's coming back. We're gonna get in some NCAA football and what's going on in NCAA. Well, not even NCAA football. The NCAA as a whole. NCAA president says Congress must act to preserve sports at colleges that can't pay athletes. So this is coming from an article that basically the NCAA is in a lot of lawsuits right now. A lot of states are suing the NCAA for NIL related rules. And I don't have a direct quote of what this is about, but I'm gonna just pull up the article and read it off to you guys. So NCAA president says Congress must act to preserve sports at colleges that can't pay athletes. NCAA President Charlie Baker said Friday that action by Congress was needed to protect what he described as the 95%, in quotes, of athletes whose ability to play college sports would be endangered by a court ruling or regulatory decision declaring them as employees of their schools. So this is basically a couple of weeks ago we talked about the Dartmouth court decision that decided that they can form a union, and I read also that they are working towards forming that union. I know at the time I said I don't know, obviously they went through the litigation because they wanted to be able to form a union. I didn't know where their progress was on forming that union and having somebody who's going to represent them and all of those things, but I think they're in the process of forming that union and doing all the steps that it takes for that. The NCAA now is coming and they're saying that that the Congress is needed to regulate all of these things. Congress is needed to, they want Congress to be able to come up with some blanket rules, some concrete rules for NIL so that the NCAA doesn't have to keep battling state by state with all of these states who think that NIL should be a thing. And I think the NCAA thinks that NIL should be a thing as well. The NCAA is just trying to protect the players. The NCAA is just trying to protect the players from getting exploited, which we've seen a little bit here and there, but they ultimately don't want it, what it is right now is just the Wild Wild West. There's not a lot of rules and regulations. So I think they tried to put a, what I'm understanding is the NCAA tried to put an NIL rule in effect that said basically third parties, they tried to put an NIL rule in effect that said third parties cannot, they're trying to outlaw the collectives, all these third parties being able to pay the players, being able to pay the athletes. They wanted to combat this collective thing that we've been seeing, which seems to be the commonplace for everybody these days, a collective, which is basically a booster group. But I don't know. The NCAA wanted to combat that. They said Baker in December proposed creating a new tier of Division I that would allow the schools that make the most money from sports to pay their athletes. So he wants, from my understanding, he wants athletes to not be, let me read this again. NCAA President Charlie Baker said Friday that action by Congress was needed to protect what he described as the 95% of athletes whose ability to play college sports would be endangered by a court ruling or regulatory decision declaring them as employees of their schools. So when I read through this article, I didn't fully understand why he said that. Why would this endanger their ability, declaring them as employees of the school? Why would this endanger their ability to play college sports? Because they're employees? Because, I kind of understand it. if they're employees and if they're now a responsibility of the school, if they're now, they're on the school's payroll, I think that would affect the ability, like that might shrink roster sizes, because to be honest, there's a lot of guys on your team who may not ever play, are just there because they're a walk-on. This might take away walk-ons. There might not be any walk-ons anymore. Dang, I kind of do understand what they're saying. That would take the ability for a lot of people to play college football or college sports away, because of the fact that you have to pay these guys now. So one, they're going to be looking for fair compensation. I think the big schools will rule it all also, because they have all the money, they have all the resources. I think there's a lot of nuance within this. I don't know why he's saying it would take the 95% away whose ability to play college sports would be endangered by a court ruling. I don't know why it'd be endangered. I think I just laid out some of the reasons why I think maybe he would say that, because, not everybody's going to get compensated fairly, equally. Maybe there's not enough spots or opportunities after they become employees for everybody. I think something definitely needs to be done. I've said this about NIL for weeks now. I think something definitely needs to be done, but I'm not sure what that fix is, and I don't think a lot of people know what that fix is. I think there's some type of union that needs to be made. There's some type of pay scale that needs to be set up, but the thing about the NCAA, which is what they maintain, is amateurism because of work labor laws. When these players become employees, they now have work labor laws that you have to follow as an institution, as the NCAA and as the college institution. You gotta give them certain days off. There's only so many hours they can work. There's a certain amount of money they have to make. All these things. There's a lot of things that come into play when you make people employees. So I think that's why one of the main reasons why they're trying to keep them as players, but I think or as amateurs, but I think we're just moving away from that. I think there's going to be a whole nother system that needs to be put into place. I don't think anybody knows that system right now, because, nobody's ever experienced this. Nobody's ever gone through this. These kids are still going to be college athletes, so they're still going to be going to school, but they're making good amounts of money, which is fair and which is right. It should be that way. But how do you regulate that? What does it look like from an overhead perspective? And, how does all that work? So that's going to be interesting. Very interesting. You're talking about 95% of colleges that probably spend somewhere between $40 million and $5 million on college sports, and they lose money, Baker said. They don't have TV contracts, and nobody can look at their income statements or balance sheets and conclude there would be a way for them to make money. So I guess his thing is like, if they become employees, if this is the route that people are taking, there's going to be so many schools that don't make any money. I mean, there's a bunch of schools right now that he's saying there's a bunch of schools right now that don't make money. A bunch of athletic departments that don't make money on college sports. So now making these people employees, which I think would be costing these schools and institutions more money, I think it's going to make them lose more money, and it's not a good model for, I think what he's saying, it's going to weed out the little guy. If you don't have the overhead of a conference, if you don't have the overhead of the NCAA, if you don't have those funds assisting some of these schools, some of these institutions, some of these conferences, I think that kind of weeds out the little guy. So I think that relates to the bigger point of why he said he wanted to make a joint conference. Interesting. I got another quote. The NCAA has a well-established history of backroom deliberations that produce unfair punishments for athletes, coaches, and universities. Until the NCAA gets its act together, any get-out-of-jail-free cards for them are dead on arrival in Congress. Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee. That's what she had to say on. So I think, the NCAA is looking for help from Congress. The NCAA is looking for help from the government, but the government's saying, you guys have been taking advantage of these players for years. So nobody is looking to help you. Nobody's looking to bail you out. Like, this is your bed. You got to lay in it now. I think that's what Congress and a lot of people in the government are trying to tell the NCAA is like. I mean, and we saw it with the Dartmouth ruling. The Dartmouth ruling, they went to the table. They want a union. The LMRB said, sure, you can have a union. And that's going out how it's going. And now that's set a precedent for college football and college athletics in general. Even though that was basketball, I might have said football, that was basketball, but that set a precedent for college athletics. Now all these schools are going to try to, all these schools that want to, all these schools that see a need, all these schools that see that as an advantage are going to try to form unions and see what that would look like for their players. So very interesting. Another senator said, Senator Chris Murphy, it might be Chris Murph. I might have forgot the Y, but Democrat from Connecticut. Now that the courts and states are forcing them to start treating athletes fairly, the NCAA is spending even more on expensive lobbyists in an attempt to convince Congress that all of a sudden college sports are broken. Start negotiating directly with the athletes to come up with an entirely new model that gives them the pay and protections they have long deserved. Until the NCAA takes these basic steps, simply coming to Congress to bail them out is not a reasonable approach. Which is very interesting because just like I just said, it seems like everybody, like these senators and these people in government, are telling them, no, we're not going to bail you out. You guys have taken advantage of these athletes for too long. You guys need to figure out a system that works for these players, that gives them the compensation they deserve, but also the protections that they deserve. And we are not going to be the ones to bail you guys out. We're not going to be the ones to get you guys out of jail free. This is your bed. You have to lay in it. Take care of these players and take care of these coaches. Take care of these institutions. It's your job. You're the NCAA, the National College Athletics Association. That is your name. That's what you are meant for, to find protections for the players, to be able to compensate these players fairly. Maybe it's not your job to compensate these players fairly or justly, but it's your job to make sure that there's rules and regulations in place so that these players can get compensated fairly. So the NCAA, stop going to Congress. Figure it out yourself. That's basically what they told them. You guys let me know what your thoughts in the comments are about, all of this that I just read off. What do you guys think about, NIL in general? What do you guys think about the future of, potentially unions getting formed? What do you guys think about potentially one joint conference where all the best teams are in that conference and all the other teams just fall by the wayside? What do you guys think about all of this? What do you guys think Congress's role in this is? What do you guys think the NCAA's role in this is? What do you think the NCAA should do? You guys let me know. I think there needs to be new rules and regulations in place in terms of the NCAA. I think the NCAA needs to get thrown out. Not the NCAA, the institution. I think their rules and regulations, maybe not all of them, but the rules governing pay for play, the rules governing amateurism, I think there needs to be a hard look at that, and there needs to be some changes. Obviously, there needs to be some changes. We can all see it, but I don't think everybody knows what those changes should be. So those are my thoughts. You guys let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Next, U.S. District Court Judge Clifton Corker in the Eastern District of Tennessee issued the injunction that undercuts what has been a fundamental principle of the NCAA's model of amateurism for decades. Third parties cannot pay recruits to attend a particular school. That's by the AP. College recruits and transfers can now negotiate and sign NIL contracts before enrolling at a university, with no fear of breaking NCAA rules, or at least they can until the case concludes, likely months from now. That was from USA Today. So the first quote was from AP. The second quote was from USA Today. Transfers can now negotiate and sign in. So, dang, this is interesting. What I think I brought up in the first AP, the first discussion we just had a couple of minutes ago about the NCAA, they're trying to block these third parties from being able to pay these players before they get to their school. They're trying to block these collectives from being able to cost these players from school to school. I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to stop all that from going on. This court ruling in Tennessee says that this can still happen. Third parties cannot pay recruits to attend a particular school. That's what the NCAA was trying to stop, and their reason for trying to stop that was amateurism. These guys are amateurs, which we all know is not true. They might be amateurs by what the word is. Amateurs, they're in school, they're not making money, but these guys are, they have the notoriety and the notice of professional athletes. Everybody in town knows these guys. Everybody wants to be involved with these guys. Everybody wants to see these guys, take pictures with these guys, sign autographs, all these things. So the fact that they're lauded as amateurs is just kind of funny to me. But I think that ruling in Tennessee says that these deals can still happen. Players and recruits can sign NIL deals while they're still in the transfer portal, or maybe even still a high school player. While you're still being recruited, you can sign NIL deals, which I think can get muddy, and we've seen that, sign a deal here, but then another school comes with another deal. You can just move on to that next school. I think that's what the NCAA is trying to combat, but I think they're going to have to put up a better fight. Tennessee's chancellor revealed January 30th in a scathing letter to Baker that the association was alleging Tennessee violated NIL rules through deals made between athletes and a booster-funded NIL collective that supports volunteer athletes. It goes on. The judge said athletes with a limited window are hurt by not being able to know their true value before committing to a school. And I think that's what the judges and the people on the judicial side of things are saying. It's like, when you block these players from being able to make these deals before recruiting to a school, they don't know what their value is. So by allowing this, the judge is saying this is making for a free market. This is making for guys to be able to go out there, see what you're worth, see if you can get more at these schools than you are here. That's what a free market is, and that's what I think the NCAA is trying to get away from. Amateurism, amateurism, amateurism. We don't want this to turn into free agency, which is what it is. Let's be honest. It's free agency. The NCAA is trying to block that. The courts are saying, no, if these players can get paid, they deserve to know how much they can get paid. They deserve to know what their value is. So if NIL is going to be a thing, you have to allow them to know what their value is, because if they can get more from somebody else, who are you to say they can't go out there and find that out for themselves? Who are you to say they can't go make as much money as possible as the NCAA? Who are you to block them from making the most money possible, whether it be done through these NIL collectives, whether it be done through these third parties, whether it be done through these schools? Like, who are you to block them from making all this money? That's what the courts are saying. While maintaining competitive balance in college sports is a legitimate and important endeavor, spreading competition evenly across the member institutions by restraining trade is precisely the type of anti-competitive conduct that the Sherman Act seeks to prevent. And the Sherman Act, I think, is the Sherman Antitrust Act, if I'm not mistaken. And that basically says, like, that's against monopolies. You can't just monopolize an industry and, keep all the things for yourself. So say Amazon in the e-commerce space, you can't monopolize. If somebody else wants to get into the space, you have to allow them to get into the space. You have to allow them to negotiate with these people. You have to allow them to see, what it's going to cost it. Like, you have to allow people in a free market to be able to move and operate how they want within the rules. So if I can get more money somewhere else, you have to allow me to go over there and get that money. You can't block me from being able to make money in a free market. If it's a free market, if it's truly and honestly a free market, I am allowed to go make money, as much money as possible, from anywhere I want to. And I think that's what these courts are saying. The judge noted the NCAA's contention that allowing so-called NIL collectives, business entities backed by boosters, to strike the deals with recruits would eviscerate the difference between college athletics and professional sports. So that's the judge saying that, yes, allowing these third parties and collectives and things like that to be able to make these deals might make college sports into professional sports. But if you're going to pay these players, if they're going to be allowed to make money, that's how it has to go. I mean, that's the only way a free and fair market works. You can't restrict them within a free market and call it a free market and allow them to get paid and still restrict them at the same time. You have to allow them to move and operate how they want to within the rules, and that's what the NCAA is saying. That's what the judges are saying. While the NCAA permits student athletes to profit from their NIL, it fails to show how the timing of when a student athlete enters such an agreement would destroy the goal of preserving amateurism. While the NCAA permits student athletes to profit from their NIL, it fails to show how the timing of when a student athlete enters such an agreement would destroy the goal of preserving amateurism. So they're basically saying, like, yes, while the NCAA permits students to profit from their NIL, that doesn't prove your fact that destroys amateurism. Just because a player can enter the transfer portal and go get paid somewhere else, that doesn't prove that that's destroying amateurism. They can still be amateurs and still get paid a fair wage, I think, is what the judges were trying to say. You guys might have been interpreted differently, and you guys let me know. Without the give and take of a free market, student athletes simply have no knowledge of their true NIL value. That is what I just said. It is the suppression of negotiating leverage and the consequential lack of knowledge that harms student athletes. And that is exactly what I was saying. When these players aren't able to negotiate, when these players aren't able to go to the table, and when these players don't know a number that they're worth. So say there's a player who just had a really good 1,000-yard season. I'm going to use a receiver since I'm a receiver. Had a 1,200-yard season, 10 touchdowns, first team all conference, everything at the Power 5 level. Say he can go somewhere else to another Power 5 school. Say maybe he's getting 10,000 in NIL. Say another school wants him and they want to give him 50, but because of this NCAA ruling, he doesn't know that they want to give him 50. They can't let him know that they want to give him 50. He doesn't know what he's worth. That is not fair. If this kid is worth 50, this school wants him for 50, he's only getting 10, he deserves to know that I can make 50 somewhere else. That is what the NCAA is saying. Corker took issue with the NCAA's strategy to prevent recruiting inducements, including the association's attempt to classify NIL collectives, which raise and distribute money, as boosters. So basically, the NCAA is trying to stop these collectives. These collectives have been making a lot of waves in college athletics, being able to pay a lot of these athletes a lot of money. A lot of these bigger schools got amazing boosters that got money for days. They want their institutions to be good. They want their sports teams to be good, so they're going to fork out that money. That's what these collectives are. The NCAA is trying to stop that, give some regulations to these collectives, allow them to be able to, make them be able to move and operate in a certain way so that these players can't get the biggest pie possible. Well, if there's money out there for me, I deserve to be able to make it, and then NCAA doesn't need to have a say in how much money I'm going to make, no matter how I get there, there should be rules and regulations on how they contact me and, how they accost me to get there. But if they want to pay me a certain amount of money, I deserve to be able to make that money, whether you're the NCAA or not. They want to pay me. I'm good enough to make that money. I've shown the ability to be able to make that money. Let me go make my money, please. Next thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm going to pull it up. I'm actually going to share it. Well, no, here, I'll pull it up. Okay, so I don't know if you guys saw this, but Kyle Filipowski from Duke, Wake Forest beat Duke. I think it was this weekend, Friday, Saturday, one of those days. They beat Duke and they stormed the court, and Kyle Filipowski was hurt during this interaction. Look at this. The fan. I don't know. You tell me. I want you guys to judge it on your own, but it kind of looks like he kind of stuck his leg out and kind of tried to push him. I honestly think there should be something said about, this isn't right. Him getting run over and trampled by these players is not right. And he also got hurt during this, so I hope he's okay. But I don't want to completely absolve him. It kind of looks like he kind of tried to trip the players. It kind of trying to look like he tried to, not trip the players, trip the fans who were running on the court. I heard he got hurt. He must have hurt his ankle or something, so I hope he's okay. But I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that because I thought, he kind of was, trying to be a little egging them on. Obviously he's a player in the game. He deserves to be protected. I would hate it if I would just lost the game. Obviously you just lost the game. You're very mad, but I think storming the field is something that's very special to college sports. I always talked about when I played in Montana, they never stormed the field once. And the people, I'm sure it's a liability issue for the schools and institutions. So they probably would prefer not, because, if somebody gets hurt and somebody's storming the field, that ultimately falls on the school and institution. So that's a money thing. Everything falls back to money. But when I was in college, they never stormed the field after one of our wins, and I was really bummed about that. This past season, I got to storm the field for the first time at Wagriz when they beat NDSU in the semifinals. The national semifinals is the first time that they allowed fans to rush the field. I don't even know if they allowed it, because there was a security guard blocking our side of the stands, and I jumped over, and then I saw another guard. I don't even know if he was really trying to grab me, but he reached his arm out, and I kind of just did one of those on my shoulder. But I kind of felt bad too, because I was like, dang, I shouldn't be on here, but my guys just won, so I was super excited. But I just know it's something that's very special to college sports, so I don't want it to go away. And I know a lot of people have talked about it needs to go away. There shouldn't be any storming. I disagree with that. I think storming the field is a part of college athletics. I think it needs to be there, but I think there needs to be, and that's the thing why I think a lot of people think it should go away, because you can't govern all of these students. You can't, there's some bad apples in there. There's definitely some bad apples in there. There's bad apples in everything that you're going to speak about. There's bad apple students that are out there that are just going to be that one guy that's going to mess it up for everybody else. And I don't necessarily think the student in this instance with the Duke player was, necessarily trying to be malicious. I think they just both kind of ran into each other. It just, he's excited his team just won. Kyle Filipowski's mad because his team just lost. He's trying to maybe push the player out of his way, or push the student out of his way. The student's trying to get to where everybody's running to. It's just kind of a bang bang situation. It sucks that he got hurt. Hopefully he's okay. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. But I think this is some of the situations like the Caitlin Clark, the Duke head coach mentioned the Caitlin Clark situation as well. The Caitlin Clark situation is another situation that you can point to where it's like, players getting hurt, but it still speaks to the magnitude of this situation. If we have players who just played in this game getting hurt, there definitely needs something needs to be done. We don't want to see these star players getting hurt with from fans rushing the field, from fans just trying to celebrate their team, which they deserve to do. These fans deserve to celebrate their team. But I was watching Nightcap last night, and Shannon, Ocho said, why don't they just take it out, or why don't they just wait a couple seconds until the players get off the field, until the players get off the court, which is a fair assessment. But then Shannon brought up another fair assessment. The whole point of rushing the field or court is to rush it right as the game hits zero. That's the excitement of it. Like rushing the court, being on there with the players on there, being able to maybe say something to the losing team in all fun and games, not nothing disrespectful, but L or something like that. That's the whole point of it. That's why people love it. That's why people think it's so exciting. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it needs to stay. That is my standing belief. I think storming the court should stay. I think it should be something that continues to be a part of college athletics. I think there needs to be a safer way to go about it. And I feel like always on here, you're telling me, say like NIL, there just needs a better way to go about it. This needs to stay. There just needs to be a better way to go about it. I think storming the field or court should stay. I think there's a better way to go about it. Do I know that better way? No. But you guys let me know if you guys enjoy field storming or court storming. You guys let me know what you guys think about that, and if you guys saw that instance with the Duke player, and if you guys think it should go away or if it should be maintained. You guys let me know. Is momentum real or made up is the question that I have for you today. Is momentum real? And I hear Pat McAfee talk about this all the time, and I'm a firm believer in momentum. And as you guys know, I'm in graduate school, so I'm studying sports psychology and talk about peak performance, flow, peak experience all the time. I just wrote a paper on peak performance, and man, that stuff is amazing. I love that. Patrick Mahomes, that fourth quarter drive, peak performance. That overtime drive, peak performance. Steph Curry's game 4 where he dropped 43, that's peak performance right there. So you guys might want to go back and look at those games or look up the definition of flow, peak performance, peak experience, and you guys can learn more about that. But peak performance is basically when you see somebody who is performing at the highest level possible. It looks like they can do no wrong. It looks like they're executing flawlessly. That is what we call in the sports psychology world peak performance or flow. A lot of people call it flow these days. It just seems like everything's flowing, everything's clicking. As an athlete, you feel amazing. It's an amazing state to be in. This is something that a lot of sports psychologists have tried to figure out how to harness, how to get players to play at their peak, their flow, their best every game. Obviously, everybody wants to play their best every game, but everybody wants to play in this, where things seem easy, like you're not having to try to do things. That's what we call flow, peak performance. A lot of people try to emulate that. Another thing that has been a hot topic in sports, and it has a hot topic because of PFF, I guess because PFF doesn't think that momentum is real. I believe momentum is real. You guys let me know what you think about momentum. I did a lot of studying and research on this, and a lot of these concepts with momentum and velocity and things like that, you can get into Isaac Newton and his laws. And a lot of people mention Isaac Newton's second law, that an object in motion will stay in motion until it reaches, or until it hits something that has, until it encounters something that has equal or more motion against it. I don't know the technical definition of Isaac Newton's laws, but a lot of the research that I was reading was talking about Isaac Newton's laws. And basically, the after doing a bunch of research on momentum and if it's real, if it's fake, there was a long ESPN article that I read of somebody talking to linguistics people, talking to sports people, talking to cognitive psychologists, talking to all the people in the realm of who might know what momentum is. And basically he came to the fact that it might just be something that's in our head. It might just be something that, we made up in our heads. But my thing about momentum is like, you can feel it when you're in it. And, everybody knows that, like they say, people might overuse the word momentum. People might overuse the term momentum. People might say momentum when it's actually not meant to be used. And one thing that was mentioned in that was like, people always talk about momentum when they talk about, it was the NC State and NC State played somebody and they were down late in the game. It might have been NC State was up and the other team was down. I can't remember, but I remember NC State, they were down. Somebody was down against or for NC State, and NC State ended up winning the game in the end. They had to score a late touchdown. Then they kicked an onside, got the onside, scored another touchdown, 134-30. It was an amazing game. They said either the winning coach or the losing coach mentioned momentum, and they were saying like, yes, you can say momentum played a part, but then do we also take into account all the other times where a team was in that situation and lost the game? Is that momentum or what was that? That's just living up to the probabilities. Because they talked about the ESPN analytics and how ESPN, does the probabilities, the win probability and lose probability for teams. And they talked about the NC State game, how when they ended up winning that game, the analytics had flipped and it had showed that, it had showed the probability had flipped, and it had showed that they were basically down here to lose, and then they went up here to win. Like at the end of the graph, it spiked at the end of the graph. So they talk about how when they do these probabilities, and when ESPN is putting up those numbers, they're basing that off of all the thousands of games that they've analyzed and all the thousands of data points that they've put in there that contributes to that 99% probability that you're going to lose, because they've seen that instance. So a lot of people say, is it momentum or is it just by chance? Are these just, lucky situations? Because, I think sometimes it is about chance. Like the NC State game could have just been chance. They could have just won by chance. But also, everybody knows that when you lose the momentum in a game, when you lose the groove in a game, I talk about this all the time. Good offensive football is played when you're in a good groove, when you're in a good rhythm, you're completing short passes, long passes, you're getting 4 or 5 yards each run. Like that's what a good rhythm flow looks like. To stop that, you have to stop that. You have to stop that rhythm. You have to get a stop on first down. You got to get a stop on second down. You got to get an interception. You got to get a pass incompletion, like something to disrupt that rhythm, disrupt that momentum. I think where it becomes interesting is just like the NC State game that I mentioned. Like, was that momentum that had changed, or was that just a lucky instance? Was that just a one-off? Was that just something that happened one time and probably won't ever happen again? We don't know, but I'm a firm believer in momentum. I think the analytics people do not think momentum is real. They just, they go off the numbers, they go off the chances, the probabilities, whatever you want to call it. I'm not a statistics guy, but I want to know what you guys' thoughts are. Do you guys think momentum is real? I'm a firm believer in momentum. I've seen it happen in games. When you got the momentum, everything's going good. I'll give you guys a perfect scenario. 2018, we played the Cats, and obviously everybody knows what happened in this game, but there was a couple instances that showed the change in momentum. We are up 22-0 in the first half. We're about to go into halftime. Montana State's driving, trying to put some points on the board, and we're about to get off the field. It's third down. Nash gets a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty or something like that after the penalty that gave them 15 yards. That gave Montana State a score at half, making it 22-7. Now you might think, oh, you guys still got a 2-touchdown lead, but that shifts the momentum a little bit. Obviously they were on the road, so they're still fighting against the crowd, but that just shifts things up a little bit. That gives them some life, that gives them some energy. And a lot of people talk about, a lot of the research that I was talking about is momentum might not be real, but it might just be the energy and the enthusiasm. Like when you're playing well, that sends dopamine signals into your head. And this is honestly what that ESPN article was talking about too, when he talked to a cognitive psychologist. When good things happen, that sends dopamine to the brain. This might be what momentum is. When you're doing good things, it's just flowing well for everybody. Everybody feels good, and that dopamine is rushing to the brain, and it's relaying. It just keeps happening in the head. But then when that bad thing happens and that dopamine stops, that's when the momentum stops. That's when everything halts offensively, defensively, whatever it is, and it just feels like a snowball effect. Well, I think the reason that a lot of people are on the fence about momentum is because you can't really judge it one way or the other. Like, nobody really knows. It's not real. It's nothing concrete. It's just a term that people use, but nobody really knows a true and firm definition for it. So I wanted to ask you guys what you guys think about momentum. Do you guys think it's real? Do you guys think it's fake? But I think I was talking about that Montana State game. We lost the momentum and we ended up losing the game. Now, there was many times in that game where we could have got the momentum back. There was many times in the game where we probably did have a good, healthy amount of momentum. But the fact that Montana State at that point in the game had the confidence, they all believed that they could win, and they did win. Unfortunately, it was against us, but that is the only, there's a ton of instances that I can think of. We played North Dakota in 2018, and they got the momentum and never let up. We lost that game by like 40, and they were up by a ton in the first half, and that's a perfect example of just how positive momentum can help you. You guys let me know. Is the hip drop tackle in football, is it a problem in football? I don't know if you guys been seeing this, but the NFL competition committee said that they're going to look at the hip drop tackle this summer when they review the rules, and they're going to see if it needs to be taken out of the game. The hip drop tackle is a tackle that victimizes a lot of players. A lot of players get hurt with this tackle. My thing about the hip drop tackle is, how do you judge it? How is it going to be judged? Do I think it's something that hurts a lot of players? Yes, I think a lot of players get hurt from the hip drop tackle. I think it takes, like Tony Pollard last year, lost the rest of his season from the hip drop tackle. Mark Andrews this season lost his season from the hip drop tackle. I think it's definitely a problem, but my thing with it is, like, it's going to be hard to govern, because these players are getting, especially in the NFL and now in college, these players are getting paid definitely, let's just use the NFL. These players are getting paid based off how they play. It is pay for play in the NFL. You play well, they pay well. That's how it works. Now, how are you going to tell this guy who's on a 4th year of his rookie deal, looking for an extension, has to make every play possible, no matter what it looks like? And unfortunately, he has to hip drop tackle a guy to be able to make a tackle so that he doesn't get a first down, so that he doesn't get any more yardage, so that I keep my job, so that I get that extension, so that I'm able to feed my family. That's where I think it gets muddy, because these players are playing and putting everything on the field, leaving everything on the field to make these plays. They want that guy to get home just as much as he wants to get home. They don't want to hurt people. They want to play. They want to be able to go home, everybody healthy. That's how everybody wants it to be. But that's not how it can be, so what needs to happen? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think you can govern this tackle out of the game. Although I do think it's a nasty tackle, and I think that it hurts a lot of players. I don't think you can govern this out of the game. I think it's just something that happens naturally. I don't think anybody tries to hurt somebody with that tackle. Unfortunately, a lot of people do get hurt with that tackle, but I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you get a different outcome. It's going to be difficult to be able to judge that. It's going to be difficult to be able to see how you're going to be able to do that. I don't know how you do that. I'd love to know if anybody else knows how you do that. Let them know in the NFL. They'd love to know. They're going to try to govern it out. I want you guys to tell me what you guys think about the hip drop tackle. I personally think it's something that's hard to judge. I think definitely as a player, I never even played defense at a high level, but I think it's something that's going to be hard not to do as a defender. Obviously you say they took the collarbone, the horse collar tackle out of the game, and it's been good. They took the face mask out of the game. It's been good. So we'll see if they actually do. They seem pretty adamant that they want to take it out of the game. So we'll see what it looks like. But I think that's something that's hard to govern. And definitely as a player, I think it's something that's hard not to do. Next, what we're going to talk about is the best, worst thing I saw last week. So the best, worst thing I saw last week was the worst thing I saw last week. And I don't know if you guys saw this. Cam Newton, and at his 7-on-7 tournament. I'm recording this on Monday, so that was yesterday. I think this is absolutely crazy. And they said it was a coach and maybe some of his players. I know I saw that it was a coach and maybe some players, maybe other coaches, but I know a coach was involved. But the fact that, one thing, let's talk about this. Cam Newton is 6'6", 260. Like, D tackles in the NFL, linebackers in the NFL, like D ends in the NFL couldn't bring this guy down. So what makes you think you, as a 190, 200-pound 7-on-7 coach, is going to be able to give Cam Newton that work? You're not, brother. You're fooling yourself and you're fooling everybody else. But also, like, why are we... obviously we don't have enough information. I don't think there's enough information out there for anybody to make a drastic opinion about what the situation was. But based on the optics and what we all could see, it was 1v3. So that never looks good for the 3, especially if you're losing. Like, I wouldn't say they were necessarily losing, but you're not getting the best of him. Nobody in that situation was getting the best of Cam. And, Cam looked unscathed. But why is it that this guy is trying to put on an event for the kids? Why is it that this guy is trying to, celebrate 7-on-7 football? He's been doing a lot of good things with 7-on-7 football for a long time. And it just seems like everybody's always coming at him. The kids are always coming at him. The coaches are always coming at him. It seems like he's always into something. And I don't think Cam is a quiet type guy who's not going to say anything. He's going to speak his mind. We've seen that time and time again. But it's like, when does that translate to putting hands on somebody? Like, we need more information, but I don't think it looks good. It's not good because he's there to celebrate the kids. He's there to celebrate, highlight 7-on-7 football, highlight the game of football, be an ambassador for the game of football, be an ambassador for those kids. He's trying to do good, and it just has to turn negative. Instead of talking about the 7-on-7 tournament now, we're talking about how Cam Newton was in an altercation, how these coaches have no respect. We're talking about how they're not highlighting the players. Instead of highlighting the players, we're talking about why the players weren't being highlighted. So I think it just is not good look. That was the worst thing I saw that happened yesterday. I hope Cam is able to bounce back from this. I hope, he releases a statement or, is able to speak on it and everything goes well. But I wish them all the best in his future endeavors in the 7-on-7 realm. Hopefully this isn't going to, deter him from being in 7-on-7. Hopefully this is only going to charge him more to want to do more for the kids and want to affect more change in the world. So good luck, Cam. I hope it all works out for you. Sorry that happened. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys thought about that. I thought it was very interesting. About NDSU's former OC is taking a job as the assistant head coach and RB coach at Iowa State, which is crazy. So he was the OC, and I don't know if he was assistant head coach at North Dakota State, but he was the OC at North Dakota State. The beginning of January, he took an OC job at Tennessee State, and I think he was his assistant head coach there. And now, obviously, he's moving up another, he's going from FCS to FBS, so I'm sure he's making more money. He's an assistant head coach, so he's probably one of the highest paid coaches on the staff. Besides probably one of the coordinators, but he's going up another level. So it just seems like there's still shuffling going around within college football. Obviously, this doesn't affect NDSU at this point. It affects Tennessee State now, but very interesting, man. This guy's been moving around, been moving up. He must be somebody who's a hot topic in the coaching world. A lot of people must be interested in him. But Tyler Roll, Iowa State also is hiring Tyler Roll as assistant head coach and running backs coach. Roll had been OC at North Dakota State and recently left for the same role at Tennessee State. Jake Waters, who had been recently named Iowa State's RB's coach, will coach QBs. That was from Adam Rittenberg. But really good for Coach Roll. I think that's interesting that he's moving around. I would want to know, first off, I felt like he left NDSU kind of late. I mean, I guess there's no timetable for coaches leaving, but I thought he left NDSU. Well, they played pretty deep in the playoffs, so maybe I won't say he left NDSU late, but he left NDSU, then went to Tennessee State, and now he's leaving Tennessee State probably right as the beginning of spring ball or a couple weeks before spring ball to go to Iowa State. I guess there's no better time than now to go, but it just seems kind of interesting that he's been bouncing around. You guys let me know in the comments what you think. If there's any NDSU fans watching, what do you guys think about him? Was he good? Was he a good OC? Was he maybe a bad OC? What do you guys think about that? One fan question of the week we will be answering. I will pull it up right now. How much will SDSU be underestimated coming into this year? That is from Dan Wildy or Wild. I hope I'm not pronouncing your last name wrong. Dan Wildy or Wild, one of the two. But he said, how much will SDSU be underestimated coming into this year? I don't think they'll be underestimated too much. They're still a good team. They still have a lot of talent coming back. I haven't seen confirmation on if Mark Gronowski, I know he's still on their roster online, but I haven't technically seen any confirmation that he's playing again this year or if he's going somewhere. I think there might be more answers on that after spring ball, but I think if you guys have Mark Gronowski, you guys can do anything. I think that running back that you guys have, who I believe I saw as a senior this year, really good player, that running back. I think you guys are returning. Well, maybe not. I think you guys lost 3 linemen, so it still seems like you guys have got some good pieces in your offensive line room. The roster online doesn't specify whether these guys are tackles or guards, so I don't know what grade each player was in. I saw you guys have some redshirt freshmen, some freshmen, and then you guys got quite a few seniors on the offensive line too. So I think it's a healthy mix of age with youth in that room, but I think that's going to be the biggest question for South Dakota State is their offensive line. I don't know how much they lost on their D-line. I know that was a staple as well. That's going to be something to pay attention to as well. How much did they lose on the D-line? How much did they lose on the offensive line? I think from a skill position perspective, you lost the Yankee twins, so that's going to be a hole to fill. I think offensively is going to be the biggest question mark for South Dakota State. I think defensively they should be pretty strong. It's so hard to tell without knowing where all they lost their pieces from. And obviously the quarterback's going to be a big spot. I know they got like 3 or 4 guys in the room. Some guys who got some age, some young guys in the quarterback room. But there's a lot of holes to fill on this team now that you look at it. You look at the offensive line. They lost, I think, 3 guys on that offensive line. They lost 2 receivers on the outside. They lost the running back, the best running back in the country from an FCS level perspective. You can say maybe Dylan Loeb, maybe him or Isaiah, but those 2 guys both going to the draft, both probably going to get drafted. So 2 of the best running backs in the country. I would say Isaiah Davis, but you're losing Isaiah Davis. You're losing your receivers. You're losing a good chunk of your offensive line. I don't know what you're losing on defense, but I think you're losing some pieces on defense as well. So I don't think they will be underestimated, but I could see them coming in as maybe being top 10, between 5 and 10. They just won back-to-back national championships, so obviously the hype around them is going to be real, and everybody's going to want to know what they're going to do. But in terms of if they'll be underestimated, I don't think you can underestimate a back-to-back national champion. I don't know if you can underestimate them, and I don't know if anybody will be underestimating them. I think everybody will give them their rightful respect, but I will say this. I think that people will put North Dakota State over South Dakota State. I think a lot of people saw what North Dakota State was able to do late in the season. They see a lot of the pieces that North Dakota State has returning to them. They just see all the makings of a team that is going to be good this year. I think that's what people see in North Dakota State. And obviously everybody knows the history of North Dakota State, so they've been good for years and years and years. So if they were good this year, I don't think that would surprise anybody. But I really don't think South Dakota State's going to be underestimated next year. I think they'll be, a worthy opponent, and I think the fans will respect them as an opponent as well, because everybody's seen what they've been able to do in the last 2 years. They've only lost one game since the beginning of 2022. So they've been winning, and they've been winning in pretty decided fashion. So I don't think you can underestimate this team, because nobody's been able to beat them for so long. So what are you going to say or do to them about them that is going to phase them or make them seem they're not an underdog? They're not an underdog. Let's just be real about that. So I don't think anybody's going to underestimate them. I think everybody's going to give them their rightful respect. Thank you for your question, Dan. I appreciate it. Hopefully you're a South Dakota State fan. Hopefully I gave you the answer you were looking for, but I don't think they'll be underestimated. I appreciate everybody for tapping into my channel today. I appreciate you guys for watching this video. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it so much. If you're watching right now, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It means the world to me. I'm looking to get to 2,000 subscribers. Still got a long way to go, but you guys can help with that just by hitting the subscribe button right now. So hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get notified anytime I drop a new video. And I thank you guys for tapping in. I will catch you guys next week. Thank you so much. See ya.